Okay, I think we have everyone online. Welcome everyone to this exciting book launch, a hybrid event, the first for the history workshop. But it's worth it because I think this book has been a long time coming, adding to the historiography of South African liberation. So today, my name is Kasonde. I'm with the History Workshop, and I'm a PhD student there, and I'll be the Master of Ceremony. That sounds a bit colonial, but so without further ado, we're going to try to keep the virtual event to an hour and a half. We have several speakers. I think before I call upon the speakers, we'll ask the head of the history workshop, Professor Noor Neftahoden, to speak just a few words of welcome. Prof. Noor.
Thanks very much, Kasonde, and good afternoon to everyone. I have a very simple task this afternoon, and that is to welcome everyone. As Kasonde said, this is indeed a first for us to host a hybrid event. I'm really pleased that we, at long last, are able to host the launch of Ali Hlongwane's book on the late comrade Zephania Mothopeng, The Lion of Azania. I'm sure that the illustrious panel will have interesting engagements with the book. In my mind, this book is long overdue. Zephania Mothopeng's life, for those of you who know, and hopefully will have already and will after this read the book, was bookmarked by the infamous Land Act of 1913, and his passing in the year that the liberation movements were unbanned. And during that lifetime, he was undoubtedly one of the towering figures of the liberation movements, of Africanist thought, of Africanist struggles, and suffered enormous repression during his lifetime. Even as he became old and infirm and ill. We're really pleased that that Ali has undertaken this task. I can't think of a better chronicler of Africanist thought, of Africanist history than Ali Hlongwane. And we are indeed terribly pleased that he is with us in the history workshop. And that we can contribute to the sharing of these ideas and certainly in the engagement of other comrades with these important work. I want to end there and just welcome everyone and also offer an apology. I unfortunately have another meeting that is starting shortly, so I won't be able to stay very long in this event. And I apologize for that, but I do look forward to being able to listen to your engagements because I see the meeting is being recorded, and I will make an attempt to engage the recording. Thanks very much, Ali, and thanks also to all the participants and the other guests who are part of the event. Thanks very much.
Thank you so much, Prof. So today we are very lucky to have very illustrious speakers. So the author here is with us, Dr. Ali Khangela Hlongwane, popularly known as Bra Ali, is a researcher in the history workshop at WITS. He recently co-authored a publication called Public History and Culture in South Africa, Memorialization and the Liberation Heritage Sites in Johannesburg and the Township Space, I think with Prof right here. He is also the author of 2 biographies of PAC figures, namely The Lion of Azania, a biography which we're launching today, and We Are Going Home Armed or Unarmed, a biography of John Nyati Pokela, 1921 to 1985. both by Scotterville Publishing, 2021. So Bra Ali is going to give us a few words and then about the book. And then we also have the granddaughter of Uncle Zeph, Mrs. Shawarela, sorry, I'm from north of the Limpopo, Mothopeng. And Ms. Mothopeng is an accomplished musician and has played with, among others, the Tombizodwa String Quartet. Yes. We also have Prof Gilingwe Mayende, who is the Deputy Vice Chancellor of Operations at the Cape Peninsula University of Technology. Prof has vast experience in the public and private sector, including as Director General of the Department of Land Affairs and Deputy VC Resources and Operations at the Central University of Technology, Free State. Prof Mayende is one of the foremost experts on land reform in South Africa, and he holds a PhD in sociology and social anthropology from the University of Hull. Prof will be joining us online from Cape Town. And then we also have Ntate Jot Lolwe, who is a veteran journalist. I think all of us know him. He was the first Black journalist at the Rand Daily Mail, and he was later managing editor of the Sowetan. His list of accomplishments is very long. I'll just say that the citation he received when getting the Order of Ikamanga in silver from the Presidential Award was for his exceptional contribution to and achievement in the field of media, literary writing, and journalism, and for his contribution to the liberation struggle and his role in the transformation of the media in post-apartheid South Africa. I was very interested when I saw several moments in the book when I saw him at the coalface of the action. So we're looking forward to hearing from him. And last and not the least of our speakers here, physically is Dr. Mutubi Mutloose, who is an accomplished writer, playwright, and publisher and administrator. He has been at the forefront of developments in media and publishing in South Africa for several decades, and was an important editor for volumes, for example, in the Raven Press series. So apart from the speakers, we also have several family members from the Mothopeng family. Among them, Tseko Mothopeng, who is a grandson, Mam Sheila Masote and Neo are also here. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Bra Ali to give us a few words.
Let me take this opportunity to thank the family of the Lion of Azania, Uncle Zephania Mothopeng. I would also like to thank the comrades who have agreed to be with us as discussants of this book. Without repeating what the program director has already said, acknowledging people, I would like to start by saying, if Uncle Zeph was physically with us today, he would have been 108 years. So he would have been a century and half a decade old. This is a long life, a long journey, very rich journey, but also a journey of someone who paid a price. I got interested in Uncle Zeph's life and militancy when I was a young member of the Azania National Youth Unity, before he was even released from prison. And whilst he was moved to Sun City 6 members of the Azanian National Youth Unity were state of emergency detainees at Diepkloof prison, and they got an opportunity to see him with their eyes for the first time. We got to see him, or I got to see him with my eyes at the press conference at Ipelecheng a few days after he's released. Yet his life, his time, his sacrifices, his humor fascinated me and kept me glued to the journey to try and trace his life. Mama Mothopeng, who is not with us, of course, accepted me from day one when I indicated to him that I had an opportunity to study for a master's degree, and I have chosen Uncle Zeph as the subject of my story. She welcomed me to her home in Orlando West. It does not matter what time I turned up. We had tea for many days together, irrespective of her age and the gap between me and her. She made available to me family letters that Uncle Zeph wrote when he was in prison. And Uncle Zeph was in many prisons. He was at the fort, he was in Pretoria prison, he was in Pietermaritzburg prison, he was on Robben Island, and he wrote letters where he expressed care for the family, always concerned about the children, their education, their career, and those letters, thankfully, Mama Mothopeng saved them. She also disclosed to me that Uncle Zeph had said to her she must keep notes of their experiences so that one day they should write about the family's experiences. But like all human beings, she postponed taking those notes. So when we then collaborated to write the story of Uncle Zeph, she was also relieved that the book, if it does get live one day, it would have covered what she had promised to Uncle Zeph she will do. Apart from the family letters, I've had an opportunity to interview many members of the family, the grandchildren, the children, Mama Sheila, the late brother to Mama Sheila, Bra Loxley, Bra John, the late brother, also another late brother to Mama Sheila, as well as the grandchildren. And they are here today. I should say Nawa, who is sitting on that other side, was a student at Funda Center when I was also a drama student at Funda Center, and she was in the photography department. And we were very jealous of her. We made sure that when she walks around, when she walks around, we keep an eye on her. We didn't want anyone else to get closer to her as if we owned her. And of course, as you would understand, the tensions of the 1980s, there were the unfortunate divide between those who defined themselves as adherents of the Freedom Charter and those of us who defined themselves as Pan-Africanists. And we made sure that she does not date someone the ranks of the, So those were part of the exciting journey of Uncle Zeph. I also had an opportunity, of course, to talk to many people who were foot soldiers with Uncle Zeph, the different generations. Those who were there when the PAC was founded, many of them are no longer with us, Sobukwe died when I was still young. I was still at a year before high school, so we never got to meet him. I must also mention Tate Chotlo. He will be speaking in this platform, but he played two critical roles in this project. As a young person of about 17 years of age, he interacted with the Africanists and found himself in prison with Ntatem Tupin at the fort. But he has also played the role of the editor of this book. I won't say much about him so that I don't take what contribution he will want to say. I also want to single out an international colleague of us who has joined in, Marjan Bolsma. She is based in the Netherlands. That is a solidarity group, one of many that hosted Uncle Zeph after his release when his health was no longer on his side, but he insisted on being on the road. He was also a magnet for very young people. What is today known as PASMA, as the Pan-Africanist Student Movement, was launched, or the planning for the launch was at his home, with the police having not given up on him, coming in and out of the house to see. And in fact, the judge who sentenced him to 2 15-year terms, that would have been 30 years, called him dirty old man, a corrupter of youth. And I want to conclude by saying to the fallists, to those who are saying fees must fall, that Uncle Zeph, wherever he is, would be relieved. Partly that the youth of today have not given up on the unfinished business, but he would equally be unhappy about the depth of our understanding of the history, about what we mean by thorough decolonization, because Uncle Zeph was part of a generation that valued studying. The last point I should mention here is that when he was in his late 60s, in prison, not healthy, he still wrote letters to the family to say, please register me with UNISA. I want to complete my studies. Thank you, Prof.
Thank you so much for that really fascinating overview of the book. And we just want to mention that during the different speakers' presentations, you are welcome to add comments to the chat. We will monitor them. But also after all the speakers speak, we will have we'll give an opportunity to people to respond if there is time. So our next speaker is the granddaughter of Uncle Zeph, Mrs. Shwarelo Mothopeng. Miss Shwarelo Mothopeng.
I'm not yet married. There's no jealous.
So she will give us a few remarks and also share a musical piece.
Thank you, Program Director. Good afternoon, everyone. I just wanted to start off by reading two pieces from two generations, which are within the book. The first piece is by Rakgadi Sheila, the daughter of the late Zephania Mothopeng. It's the letter that she wrote to her dad. And the second piece is a piece from her Tete Zeph and Mothopeng's granddaughter, my older sister, Bibi Mothopeng, who wrote this piece about 17 years ago, which is a reflection of her experiences with going to visit Grandpa in prison. Reflections from a daughter, Sheila Masote's letter to her late father, Zephania Mothopeng. Dear Papa, a great deal has gone unsaid between us. I don't think I have told you enough that I love you. Well, I really do. I have missed you. I yearn painfully and greatly for the loving and all-time present father I know you intended to be. I know this because as early as the tender age of 5 years, when you and Mama enrolled me for ballet classes at the Jubilee Center, the home of the Johannesburg Bantu Music Festival, JBMF, that you chaired, you accompanied me in a second-class train ride every Saturday to Faraday Station for my 1 hour long ballet lesson. This was followed by a 3-course lunch at the Bantu Men's Social Center, which was always the cherry on top of the quality day spent with you. With hindsight, I realized that while waiting for me to finish my lunch, that's when some of your political meetings under the guise of business or social meetings were held. I still wonder how you pulled this off, given that you were always under the scrutiny of the eagerly eyes of the security police. I wonder if people know that at the time, in the 1950s, arts and culture activities such as ballet, singing, poetry, choral music, sclatamia, and ballroom dancing that I always enjoy witnessing were programs of the JBMF under your chairmanship. I thank you and other stalwarts such as Dale Klake, Gabi Ngoma, my mother, Bibi Mothopeng, Emily Mutsielo, Peter Radzant, Dan Twala, Dora Mabaso, and Brian Ferdinand, who were some of the leaders in the JBMF's history for exposing Black people to arts and culture. Talking about history, your own son-in-law, Michael Matlaela Masote, became the longest serving head of the JBMF from 1964 until 2017, when he passed on. It was during his tenure in 1975 that the JBMF changed its name to the African Cultural Organization of South Africa, ACOSA, in rejection of the derogatory reference to Bantu and to embrace the spirit of Africanism and Black consciousness. I grew up in an environment rich in social and cultural identity and associated activities. Needless to say, in 1959, you left us. Your destiny became prison, and such pain for the family for so many, many years. So the second letter is basically from the grandchild. So I'm just trying to show how each generation that followed went through similar pains. This is a reflection by Bibi Mothopeng Jr. In my childhood, my parents often took us to different prisons to see my grandfather. He was always being transferred from one prison to the other. The visits to Robben Island is vividly emblazoned in my mind. We boarded a train from Johannesburg Station and traveled for many hours. Once in Cape Town, we were hosted by the church. There were many other families that traveled to see their loved ones on the island, on Robben Island. They too were hosted by the church. The mornings began with a prayer, breakfast, then off we went to the island. Everyone had to pay a fare to board a boat from Cape Town to the island. It was a really hot day. Only white people were permitted to sit at the top of the boat. They enjoyed the view of the endless sea waters and the cool Cape breeze, while all the Blacks who had paid the same fare sat at the bottom in the heat. When we reached the island, the anxiety began. One could not always be certain that we would be allowed to see our loved ones. On that day, we were unfortunate. A tall, unfriendly white man told us, "You cannot see Zeph today." in a typical deep Afrikaans accent. He did not seem to know or care how far we had traveled. His word was final. Now, some years later, my thoughts drift back. This is not a unique story. So many people experience disappointment, humiliation, anger, frustration, and a great feeling of injustice during these prison visits. This, I suppose, was one way to demoralize families, whole communities, and ultimately a people. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Tshwarelo Mothopeng. I am one of Dade and Me Bibi and Zephania Mothopeng's grandchildren. I would call both my parents all-rounders. My grandmother was an educator, nurse, community builder, and a singer. My grandfather was an educator, political leader, music composer, and piano player. One area of their lives I would like to talk about is their deep love for the arts, specifically music. I can only imagine that both my grandparents found peace and solace in music. Their passion for music was passed down to their children. My uncles, Loxley and Lancelot, and my father, John Mothopeng, all played the piano. I often wondered who was the best player of the three. My father unknowingly once answered this question by admitting that Uncle Lance, who was the last born, was the most talented. I remember watching them play and interrupt each other during practice sessions at home. Subtle disagreements about the chords they would play, but more evident was their passion and love for music. I remember whenever they would play a classical piece, Granny would join in with a sweet soprano opera voice. Their only daughter, Sheila Masodi, was a dedicated and highly talented ballet and ballroom dancer at the Jubilee Center, where Tate Zep was a committee member with Professor Tabingo. Our grandfather's love for music and the arts was not only shared with their children. While Tate Mothopeng was in prison, Granny conducted musical and art activities for all the children in the neighborhood. Boys and girls from the community would come to our house and practice nativity plays, Christmas carols, and choral music. These activities started in the 1950s, and the group was called the Nightingales. Some of the songs which the Nightingales performed were actually composed by Tate Mothopeng. I remember two songs in particular that he wrote. The one was called Sangoma, and the other one was Mutla. Yes, Mutla is a song about a mouse, which we continued to sing until the 1980s. Through the pain, peace was found in music. A love for the arts was so deep in the family that Mr. and Mrs. Masode continued to run the African Cultural Organization of South Africa. Our parents went even further to ensure that all of their children played at musical instruments. Today, even the great-grandchildren are playing musical instruments. I remember having a conversation with a friend and I told them, "You're not born into my family and not play musical instruments." The grandchildren show their appreciation and respect to their grandparents and to their parents through academia, sports, music, and taking up space in corporate South Africa. Dr. Ali Hlongwane, the Mothopeng family would really like to thank you for writing such a detailed, factual, and well-documented book on Dr. Zephania Mothopeng. We really appreciate the time, dedication, effort, and initiative you have taken in writing this book. This book is a legacy that can never be erased. I'd also like to thank all the members of this panel for joining us today. I look forward to hearing more and your insight on this book and the topic today. I also would like to thank everybody who's worked behind the scenes to put together this launch and this book. Thank you to the publishers, the organizers, and the sponsors of this launch, and thank you for everyone who's attending. Tate Mothopeng has served, suffered, and sacrificed for his people. Please relate. So I'd like to leave you with a piece. I did mention that even the great-grandchildren are in music, playing music. So there's a piece I'd like us to play. It's by Pendo Masote. Pendo is 17 years old and is currently studying music at the Humane School of Music in England. The piece that he'll be playing is the second movement of Suites in the Old Style by Christian Sinding. Please enjoy.
Sorry, we're just fixing the sound. We'll play it just now.
Hey, one. Still not playing. But there's no sound.
Just no sound. I'm just gonna go sit. I think that maybe we should move to the next one and try. Yeah, okay.
We apologize for the technical problems. We will come back to that musical piece. But for now, we will move to our next speaker, Tate Mutubi, who will give us some comments on the book.
Good afternoon, everybody. I hope we all accepting this invitation on the basis that we too are history makers in our own right, because it was exactly on a Saturday afternoon that I had the honor of meeting Tate Mothopeng before you, Ali. He happened to have been transferred to the Florence Nightingale Hospital in Hillbrow without even Mothopeng having been told that he was going to undergo an operation. I don't know what happened that morning. Something greater than myself told me I should go to the hospital and insist I see Tate Mothopeng. At the entrance, they told me he could not be seen by anybody because he was under police guard. I insisted I wanted to see Tate Mothopeng. Right up to the entrance of his ward. I think I must have made the biggest noise that anybody could make under the circumstance. And for one moment, the door opened because the policeman wanted to inform him that there was a madman saying he wanted to see him. And just as the door opened slightly ajar, his face appeared, and he said, he is family, let him in. I went in and I saw a face, despite him being obviously in pain, had a smile and had a joy and was himself pleased. Who told him who I was? I don't know. Who told him to say I was family? I don't know. I knew then that I had to have the honor of being his publisher. It took 10 years for a former club foyer to approach me and say he had this research and would I agree? I said yes before seeing what he had written. And so he had to live up. He passed his MA dissertation and then dumped the manuscript with me. And for a reason I don't know, he decided to go one step further to become a doctor, not which one, but a real one. And so it happened that he then came one morning to say, I have completed the work. I have got the degree, postdoctoral. And we then have to agree who would have the patience and the understanding to edit it. We both agreed without having even caucus that Rare Joe Cholwe was the ideal copy editor. And Kia Leboga Ngaka Cholwe. But it is important to remember that Ali is an unsung academic. I want to say he's making me greater because he has completed another biography. Yan Ndate Nyati Pukea. Not only has he completed it, it's now in full production. Might be ready in 2 weeks' time. Harobali Wango. And I don't want to say something else. Happy Wango. And talking about this commitment, Masote is a blessing to have you today. You have written the most passionate love letter by a daughter to a father I have yet to experience in any of the political biographies out of this country. It's unique and is an expression of my father gave so much to the nation and seemed to have forgotten us. But then she said, but I now understand why you were so dedicated. But the same thing is expressed here. There's a love letter Yandate 1967 to May about how she was looking after the family. Now, it's a question I would like to pose to Dr. Ali Hlongwane. Why is it so unique that Dr. Mothopeng's contemporaries, Professor Mphahlele, Professor Kabingoma, Dr. Aaron Matlhari, happen to all have been teachers, happen to also have been committed family people, also happening to have been devoted parents, and equally important, faithful husbands. I want to underline it. Faithful husband, one wife, one wife. And the same thing could be said of the other contemporaries. Dade, GM teacher, even Nyati, even Sobukwe. Is there any connection to their grounding for them to have been so passionate and so ethical in how they saw the bigger picture than just where they are? And when they decided to say they are a integral part of Africa, not a region, where do we find that kind of connection today? And what's the missing dimension where the country is in turmoil, lacking ethical leadership, no vision, and also moving backward with navel gazing about us in the region and not us as a part of the continent? So this book of Ndate is very important because Ndate is asking questions in the 60s, which are being echoed today. He talked about the United States of Africa, which is now the AU, and also the Integrated Economic Agreement, right? And also, as you rightly say about young people, if you want to decolonize Africa, you first must find her, know her, embrace her, and love her. If you don't do that, you will be blowing with every wind and moving everywhere without a foundation. So that being a lion, you don't explain to us who called him a lion and why a lion, not a tiger or an elephant or a crocodile. I would hope. Fun? Cat. So I am saying, I am humbled that Ali completed the first part of his journey as one who researches, who analyzes, and then shares with the community so that we might find ourselves through the prism he has created about Ndate Mothopeng. The baritone voice, the mathematician, right? And a teacher's teacher. Or am I speaking about somebody fictitious, me? Myself. So, Hlongwane. And I hope, where's his daughter? Well, you don't know your father until now, ne? Okay.
Thank you so much, Dr. Mothopeng. Those were very provocative questions, but we'll leave it until the end when other speakers speak for Dr. Hlongwane to respond. We'll now move to our speakers joining us online. We'll start with Dr. Jotlolwe, who will give us some remarks. And then after that, we'll move to Prof. Kilingwe Mayende from Cape Town.
Israelite. Ali Hlongwane's biography describes how Uncle Zeph held his body again and again at the might of the white government. In that process, he also held his family, wife Ebenia, children Loxley, Lancelot, John, and Sheila, and possibly his grandchildren. He sacrificed everything for his liberation and the liberation of his people from all forms of oppression. I watched this drama over the years. My friends, my parents were friends and teaching colleagues with Zeph and Azania, bound by their love for music. I spent the year 1960 in prison with him at number 4. That's today's Constitution Hill. At the Stonyard prison in Boksburg and the Stolberg prison in the Free State. And when I got married in 1972, I was sitting with my wife at the head table when I noticed Uncle Zeph and my former high school principal, T.W. Kambole, slip through a side door. Now, at that time, Uncle Zeph was banned. He was not allowed to attend any meetings. Any meeting of more than 2 people was an offense. But he defied his banning orders just to come and wish me well in my marriage. I spent the period 1977 to 1978 in detention and suffering torture in cells in KwaZulu-Natal, near his cells, near the cells of his wife and his daughter, Sheila. I'm so happy you and Neo are here. Let me say to Ali, thank you for putting on record the letter Sheila wrote to her father after he died. And I think the granddaughter read part of that letter. It brought tears to my eyes. Now, we, the conscious activists, forget the trauma we inflicted on our families. We gloss over the pain and the price they had to pay. We gloss over the trauma apartheid has inflicted on our society, on both the oppressed as well as on the oppressor. We are a sick society. In this biography, Ali describes how Uncle Zeph was relentless in his pursuit of liberation. He was propelled by his values. I'm echoing Ntate Mutwazi. For him, freedom was all important. He put his life on the line for no immediate reward, whether of money or of glory. Now, each year, we pause to remember the more obscene of the violence of apartheid. We remember Sharpeville Day, we remember Soweto Day, etc. But we forget that the violence was woven into the texture of our daily lives. Remember the past raids, arrests for not observing the night curfew in white areas, arrests for brewing African beer, arrests when we were caught with so-called European liquor, the death in detention. The list of this pain goes on and on. The Lion of Azania vividly captures the pain then and the pain that persists today. After reading it again this week, I'm left with the persistent questions. Why is it that after 27 years of so-called liberation, after the levers of power were allegedly passed on to us into the hands of the oppressed, why are the richest 20% of people in South Africa still controlling 70% of our resources? Why are our people wallowing at the bottom of the pile? Now, the irony is that some of today's rich were once on the same side as Uncle Zeph, committed to a liberated South Africa, ready to lay down their lives for freedom. Ready to lay down their lives for the freedom of their people. Now, the question that haunts me: how were they seduced into forgetting their values and getting swallowed up in the culture that's eating at our society today, the culture of greed? Our values as a society today make a mockery of the lives of heroes like Uncle Zeph, Robert Mangaliso Sobukwe, and others who died fighting for our liberation. Mafrika Ali, congratulations on a job well done. I was so proud to be with you along this journey. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tate Hlongwane, for those really provocative comments. You're asking us to reflect on what happened. Why is there still so much inequality when people sacrifice their lives and put their lives on the line, including you? We're so grateful that you're here. We're going to move on to Prof Mayende from Cape Town, who will also give his remarks. And after that, we'll go back to Dr. Ali Hlongwane to wrap it up for some comments.
Master of Ceremonies, as you call yourself. Members of the Mothopeng family, some of whom I've worked with some years in the past and whom I'm very happy to see on this platform. Distinguished presenters, and Dr. Hlongwane, and Dr. Mothopeng. I see Dr. Mothopeng is a very modest person. He never told me that that was his title. But I've always suspected something along those lines, because in our correspondence, I've always made it a point that I call him sir. Comrades and friends, especially those who have joined this platform from faraway countries. It is indeed a singular honor for me to be participating in this forum as one of the discussants at the launch of a biography of such a towering figure in the annals of the struggle for liberation of the people of our country. I first met Uncle Zeph Mothopeng in London. I think it was 1990. I was still quite young then. I was in the process of completing my own PhD. Dr. Ali, I beat you to it by I think more decades. Well, obviously we do belong to different age groups as well. And you know, I lived in Hull, which is in a part of Yorkshire that is called Humberside. And when I heard that Uncle Zeph was in London, I was told he had been receiving medical treatment at a hospital in London called Charing Cross. I just said, come what may, I'm going to find my way down to London, because I can never allow myself to miss such an opportunity to meet this great leader of our people. And indeed, I did meet him. And when he was there, he was accompanied by Benny Alexander before he changed his name to Khoisan X. And there were leaders of the Pan-Africanist Congress who were also there. I remember, I think the late Sabelo Pama and the late Joe Mkwanazi were also there. And of course, Mayor Ebaniam Tuping was also there. So you can imagine the kind of atmosphere, you know, that we found ourselves in when we're enthralled by Ntate Tuping, as it took us through so many accounts of events that occurred way in the past. You know, he was quite frail at the time, but somehow he still exuded this aura, you know, of somebody with great inner strength. And one could still see radiating through from him, you know, his determination, in spite of his failing health at the time, to continue playing a role towards the liberation of his people. So, Dr. Hlongwane, congratulations to you, and well done, son of the soil. This is really greatly appreciated. You have made a major contribution. You might not realize the extent of your contribution, but it is a great contribution indeed. Let me point out that I'm making my input at today's launch as an Africanist and as a scholar. So just like Ntate Joe already did at the beginning of his input, I will also say to you all, izwe lethu, Africa
izwe lethu.
What Dr. Ali Hlongwane has done is very rare in the field of biography writing, because he has presented both the personal and the political dimensions of his subject in a balanced manner. I also wish to foreground the point that the book, The Lion of Azania, a biography, is also a political biography sui generis. In other words, it is a political biography in the true sense of the word. Dr. Hlongwane's book is therefore a much welcome breath of fresh air in a field of writing that has been rendered stale by the host of personal narratives and hagiographies that South Africans have seen over the past 3 decades. You know, I'm sure many of us are aware of many of these, where you are just given stories of how great this particular person or that particular person is, all the good about them, and so on. That is why I'm using the term hagiography, which is an uncritical perspective on writing on any subject matter, especially one that has to do with an individual. Dr. Hlongwane also reveals a least known attribute of Uncle Zeph Mothopeng, which is that of an intellectual. This is a huge revelation for many, even to his close adherents and admirers, and I count myself amongst these. This is the Mothopeng who delved into radical journalism, and the Mothopeng who presented cogent and penetrating analysis of complex subjects such as imperialism. This was really an eye-opener in the book for me. I never knew Uncle Zeph to be one of those who would present such analyses. And now I'm more the wiser as a result of what is contained in Dr. Hlongwane's book. But perhaps more importantly, the Zeph Mothopeng that we see through Ali's book is an epitome of consistency, fortitude, and singularity of purpose and focus upon and belief in the justness of the mission to which he devoted his long, painful, and eventful life. This aspect of consistency, I'm sure many of us would be aware of it, but Dr. Hlongwane weaves through various aspects and dimensions of this attribute, this key attribute of Ntate Mothopeng, in a manner that makes us even more aware of who Uncle Zeph really was. Uncle Zeph Mothopeng also emerges in the book more than just as the uncompromising firebrand leader so idealized by African youth, and certainly not so much as the obstinate, radical, and incorrigible rebel that the racist settler colonial regime portrayed him to be, but rather as a reflective, strategic thinker endowed with a razor-sharp analytical mind and a clear sense on how the mission to which he had devoted his life was to be achieved. Again, these are insights into Uncle Zeph Mothopeng that are brought to life and are brought to our attention through the book that Dr. Hlongwane has written. A Pan-Africanist par excellence, who was not only a devotee of Pan-Africanism as a creed and as a philosophy, but who also lived according to the ideals of Pan-Africanism. And I can attest to that from my own engagements, albeit brief as they may have been while we met when we met in London. Indeed, Ali Hlongwane's book takes the readers into the mind of Zeph Mothopeng, and in so doing opens a window into perhaps one of the foremost architects of Africanism. Now, Africanism, perhaps let me pause here a little bit, as a concept was coined by the great and also illustrious Antoine Lembede, refined by A.P. Mda, as a synthesis of the philosophy of African nationalism and Pan-Africanism, which they then called Africanism. So we see Uncle Zeph Mothopeng epitomizing and being one of the architects of this concept, albeit in a context in which the conceptual and theoretical precepts of Africanism are combined dynamically and inextricably with a praxis of struggle at a practical level. And this is where Uncle Zeph distinguishes himself and cuts, perhaps to a very large extent, himself apart from many of his peers. many of his peers, indeed, there were others like him as well, such as Robert Sobukwe and others. But he, more than everybody else, because he spent more time amongst the communities that he lived in. Yes, he did spend a lot of time in prison as well. But he cuts himself apart in the sense that he was able to translate the ideals for which he stood into practical actions that he involved himself in, and for which he provided leadership, and for which consequently he suffered and endured as a result many years of incarceration. Dr. Hlongwane also presents rare and clearly nuanced insights into Zeph Mothopeng's role in the key moments of the Azanian liberation struggle. Although perhaps Ali Hlongwane is not necessarily driven by a quest to provide real evidence of the pivotal role that Zeph Mothopeng played in such epoch-making turning points of the struggle, such as Sharpeville and Langa on March 21, 1960 and June 16, 1976. Dr. Hlongwane's presentation of such evidence makes a much welcome contribution towards placing Mothopeng's role in these events in a proper context. In other words, the effect of the manner in which Dr. Hlongwane presents Uncle Zeph's role in these events is to debunk whatever myths or put to bed whatever doubts that may have existed about Uncle Zeph Mothopeng's pivotal role in these events. It's in the book. It's there for all who would like to read the book to see. This is a major role. This is a major contribution to history writing, or sorry, to writing on the history of the Azanian struggle. Although set against a backdrop of what comes across as an objective and honest survey and appraisal of the PAC's tumultuous political history, Dr. Hlongwane's biography of Mothopeng also projects Uncle Zeph as a true hero to his followers and the African people in general, as Mothopeng emerges as a person who also served as a glue that held the PAC together, despite the organization's political woes. This is another major revelation in the book. This biography of Zephania Mothopeng thus also brings the reader to a point of beginning to understand and appreciate why he eventually became the president of the organization, that is the Pan-Africanist Congress of Azania, inheriting this mantle from the great Mangaliso Robert Sobukwe. A deep sense of revulsion against injustice, a strong sense of mission for the liberation of his people, and most of all, a consuming love of Africa and the African people were his hallmarks, and these are sewn together very well and assiduously by Dr. Hlongwane in his portrayal of Zeph Mothopeng the man and Zeph Mothopeng the political leader and leader of his people and of his communities. In conclusion, while indeed the story of Zeph Mothopeng's life is wrapped in tragedy, so many years of incarceration and denial of the opportunity to lead a normal family life, more than being a lamentation about what could have been. Ali's book provides us with a story of a man whose gallant and courageous actions and indomitable and never say die spirit left an indelible mark on the Africans' quest to change their present reality and ontology. But what is this ontology? In other words, what is the practical reality? Unfortunately, as Ntate Hlongwane has articulated so well, it is a sad state of affairs. And I'm sure that Mothopeng, together with many of his generation, are turning in their graves when they see what's going on in our country today. The land question, which remains unresolved. Perhaps this might be one of the lacunae, Dr. Lacunae, by that I mean gaps in the biography, if perhaps you might be wishing to do a further review, a further, what is it called, when you bring in another version of a book?
Second impression.
Second impression. You might have to look at this, because I know how passionate that Mothopeng was on the land question. Indeed, he is quoted in the book in a number of areas. There is a famous quote that is attributed to him, that without land, a nation is nothing. Perhaps this is one area that Dr. Hlongwane might wish to explore even more deeply as and when it gets a second take on the book, on how that Mothopeng articulated his position on the land question. I was enthralled, literally. Was quite young at the time, still at the stage when I was taking in a lot of ideas, doing as much reading as I could. And I was just in awe of how well he articulated this whole issue around the land question in South Africa. The second aspect, as I'm moving towards concluding my input, Master of Ceremonies, the second aspect of the ontology that we find ourselves in, and this is something which we have to accept and face head on. And by we, I mean those of us of an Africanist bent, and those perhaps who also would like to see real change taking place in our country, is that we live under a neo-colonial system that exhibits the worst characteristics of neocolonialism. I've written a book, well, let me say a manuscript on the land and agrarian questions. Incidentally, Dr. Mothopeng is my publisher, my prospective publisher. I'm told the book will be coming out in December. And I wish to say that I'm thinking very hard about my next writing project being something entitled The Dimensions of South Africa's Neocolonialism and how to address it, something like that. Obviously, one is still has to panel beat the book as one's thinking takes shape. So, Master of Ceremonies, ladies and gentlemen, colleagues, that concludes my input, and thank you very much once again for the opportunity that has been accorded me to make an input at today's launch. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Prof, for those that very thorough response to the book. And I will pass the floor over to Bra Ali immediately to respond to the questions and provocations from the discussants. I don't know if he will respond to all of them, but I leave it up to you. So.
Thank you, Program Director, and thank you to all the participants. I definitely will not respond to all the questions. They have made me think, and I am thinking, but I do appreciate them. The one deep question that has been asked is, why was that generation of Uncle Zeph, Ntate Eskiam Pashele, Ntate Kabim Ngoma, Ntate Matlare, and many others of their generation. What made them what they became, and also what made them leave behind for us to emulate and follow in their footsteps and even deepen. Indeed, they were teachers, but we should also remember that at the time, the only professions that were available for Africans was teaching, a few nurses, a few lawyers, mainly criminal law, dealing with divorce and petty crime, and others as religious leaders. But they took on to their education, and Uncle Zeph was interviewed by a journalist from Tribute magazine, Mure, and he said in that interview that when they were young, they went to school with the hope that the society they were growing up in will appreciate their achievement, their intellectual capabilities, and use them to further develop the society they were living in. But lo and behold, that society said they are natives and they have their own place. I think it is that head of rejection that made them realize that they can do whatever they want to do as individuals and achieve. But if the society in general is not taken along this path of rediscovery, of searching for a new society, they would still not achieve what their ambitions were. And most of them, though they were teachers, they then became members of the ANC Youth League. They became members of the Teachers Association. They became part of study groups in Orlando West. They called it a study circle, where they came together, read, discussed, agreed that when they go to their classes as teachers, they will give more to the children than the education system required. And it is that commitment that I'm struggling myself to capture and to understand its meaning. I think in the preface to the book, I do say I am attempting to understand the deeper significance of Uncle Zeph's life. I'm not sure whether I have succeeded to understand that depth. And I think the journey is ongoing. I also appreciate the Professor Mayende in acknowledging the gaps in the story. As I was sitting next to my young sister here, I whispered to her that the piece she presented, that is Twarelo, suddenly reveals a lot that I did not know. For instance, I note in the book that Uncle Zeph was a composer, but I was not able to identify more songs except those he composed within the ranks of the PAC, like Unite, Unite, All Ye Africans Unite, and Rally to the Glory of the African Continent. Promote, project the African personality. And this African personality is what we are attempting to understand. What was unique about it? Is it something essential? Is it something scientific? Is it something born of struggle as opposed to be something that is hereditary? Dr. Mtobi spoke about the need to always imagine the new, and he used the word vision. I'm not a religious person, but the little I know from people who say they're Christians is that they say, where there is no vision, people perish. And indeed, we should not allow our society to perish for failure to imagine new possibilities. The scholar and activist from Tanzania, who is now late, Ali Babu, published his last book before passing on. And the title of the book was Another Africa is Possible. And I hope as we study the life and times of people like Uncle Zeph, we are part of that struggle to reimagine another life that is possible. I'd like to pause there, Program Director, and I'm not sure what your next step is. There are just two organizations I would like to acknowledge towards the end as you close.
Thank you so much, Doc. We will pause for 1 minute while we try to bring up the video. And while we do that, please type in some questions in the chat. And also the live audience, we encourage you to ask some questions.
I'm going to just say, so then I'm going to just switch over. Do you want to just explain and then I'll start sharing?
So we're going to share the musical piece from one of Tate Mothopeng's grandchildren, great grandchildren, Pendo.
And hopefully it'll work this time.
Wow, that was from Pendo Masote, the great grandson of Nkazaf. Well, I'm looking at the chat. I don't think there are questions, but I'll just go through some comments. Lots of congratulations from Tabiso. And there's a comment from Ellen Mothopeng. Thanks, Dr. Ali, Hlongwane, and Dr. Mutubi. You are really complementing each other. One wonders where you are drawing your energies, both of you. And hi, Professor Gilingwe, pleased to see you again. So that's from Ellen Mothopeng. I think this is from Marjan from the Netherlands. Says, thank you, Dr. Hlongwane. And then Mampula Mangena says, thank you, Dr. Hlongwane, for educating us who were born in the 90s of where we come from. I cannot wait to read the book. Is this Pinky Mothopeng?
Yes.
Pinky Mothopeng. She's from Botswana. She's in Botswana. Says, thank you, Dr. Hlongwane. Brett Piper says, warm congratulations, Dr. Hlongwane, and thanks to the other speakers for their insightful contributions. Lera Tondlovu says, congratulations, Dr. Hlongwane. Thank you for educating us and being a mobile library. We really appreciate it. Nkululeko Somlalo says, yes, another Africa is possible. Thank you, Africa Hlongwane. And then again from Marjan, thank you speakers and Dr. Hlongwane for this inspiring and moving event. So I'll just give very brief comments in closing unless anyone in the live audience wants to say anything. Okay, we have two. We'll start with a family member.
Thank you, Dr. Hlongwane, and everybody who's contributed to this very insightful book. I must say, as Zeph Mothopeng's eldest granddaughter, it was very emotional to read about my grandfather. in a book. We hardly ever knew him. And I think what is most painful, and you talk about Africa, again, Shagara Africa will be born another Africa, it's possible. I think as a people, we need to take it amongst ourselves. And I'm very encouraged about the many professors that spoke today, the wealth of knowledge that came out today. It's really an indictment that 27 years into our democracy, that we still have the type of history that was taught to me when I was at school. When my daughter the other day said dromedaries, I was like, do you still learn 1652, you know? I think as a country, we need to move forward. We've got enough academics, we've got enough material. I think we should talk about changing the education system so that it reflects who we are as South African and as an African people. And, you know, I challenge everybody, including myself, to take that pen and document the real stories of what South Africa is, but more importantly, who our real leaders are. Because if we don't speak up, anybody who speaks the loudest becomes the one that everybody listens to. And I think that is why, you know, when you said that, you know, the great leaders of today or of yesteryear must be turning in their graves, is because we are letting those that hardly have the knowledge, that are revered for lives that, you know, the corruption, the everything, that it becomes who we are as a people. So I'd like to say, you've taken the first step. And I think, you know, I challenge all of us to just find a way of documenting who we are so that we leave a legacy that is befitting for our children to speak about Kibo Mangona.
Thank you so much. That's Mrs. Neo Momote, the eldest granddaughter of Uncle Zeb. We have time maybe for one more live comment. We're still learning online, so I'll give space for.
Okay, ngibonge Mgcini Sihlalo, ngithathele ithuba lokubongela uDr. Hlongwane for umsebenzi lo omkhulu awenzile. Just to indicate that Dr. Hlongwane engimazi ngakhona, I used to attend the open lecture series on Saturdays that was organized by the institution Professor Skiampahlela, the Council for Black Education and Research. Yeah, Obram Tobi and Obram Zumi, they used to be regular. Yeah, they used to be regulars on those sessions, and I enjoyed a lot. I actually struggled to get my own comrades from the Freedom Charter side to come and attend. So, because they always look at that as a PAC thing. I look at this as a knowledge session. So I learned that. So that's why I met Mpuka Nonsiye. So I was in detention when they met Uncle Zeph. I had an opportunity to born. Unfortunately, my regulation as a jail could not give us enough time. Because at that time they were sentenced prisoners. So to were detainees. So my visiting days were to fine. But this better than a So what you will do, you will lie that you pay $1 or pay so that you could go to. So we heard that he was about to go home, transferred from wherever. So he was with the other leader, PAC. Who was from Robben Island as well. He was Protestant City. Ujef, yes. He was with Brajef. So we had to lie, and then we find, luckily, he was walking to the visiting room to visit the family. So the rules did not allow him to speak, but someone and like he was, hey, and he was ill at that time. So yeah, I was like, and then because of the tension, it always comes back to me in the ANC. I didn't know the other four. I only knew because of the CBER thing. So whenever we're together in prison, they always say to my comrade, always say to me, "Hey, when so they always refer to as Avangan. But as they keep with my friends, whenever we find time, we'll talk together, irrespective of this belong. But I always share. And sometimes they will share with me, because they will stay in the same cell. But I was in a different cell, they were in a different cell, but they will share with my comrades. So we used to have our own political education session. But they had opinions, unfortunately, because they're not part of they couldn't voice out their opinion on how do they think the political education session should be conducted in the set. So because I was there, so during exercise time, they will share that with me. No, man, it's alienate. I think I'm a comrade don't handle this thing the way we think is a benefit. I'm a comrade. This is the view. But unfortunately, view I was just, but yeah, I'm happy to be. And I also read your first reports. Yes, I heard from Toby saying there's another one coming. So I'm so excited. I'll come again because I have this one. Thank you very much. I'm sorry. I have to leave because I'm rushing for public transport and also I'm campaign. So I'm going to come.
Israel to Africa. Siyabonga Ngwane. Siyabonga Masuku. Ndugu zinobulongwe. Nathi senza abantu sama-Afrika. Iyabonga Azania. Utata Zephania Mothopeng. Khangela slogan sakhe when he was saying a nation without arms is no nation. The Pan-African Student Organization of Azania was baptized by Zephania Mothopeng in 1989 when it was launched. He was already frail and he was ill, but he was not too ill not to undertake the duty he was left with by Sobukwe. It was Sobukwe who said, "Uyibhubesi Mothopeng," and he has lived up to that name of Lion of Azania. I didn't realize I was sitting next to the lioness there. Zephania Mothopeng is a towering giant in the struggle, in the annals of the Azanian history. He has no equal. He's the chief architect of June 16, 1976. No one talks about that history. It was the Africanist movement that led, that sponsored, that planned. It was Zephania Mothopeng who was accused #1 at Bethel trial, who has suffered, who served and sacrificed his life. Today we are living in this neo-colonial state, which is nothing close to what his generation envisioned Africa to be. Africa, isolate. Africa, inkululeko.
Thank you very much, Program Director. Comrade Ali, I have so many questions, but I'll stick to one, or rather combine two into one. I was wondering if you were not intimidated with writing this book, given the towering character of Uncle Zeph. He's internationally known, So in your mind as a writer, what were the contradictions you were facing or the fears you had about writing about such a character, a revered character such as Uncle Zeph? And lastly, I was wondering if you were not tempted, because at the end of your book, you talk about when Uncle Zeph passes on, but Uncle Zeph has got different legacies to different people, especially within the party. Young people revered him and they say he was on their side. You have a group which then was called the Revolutionary Watchdogs. They always argued that if Zeph was alive, we would have a different South Africa, his posture towards negotiations was very radical. But I was wondering if you were not tempted to go to that particular aspect of his posture towards a negotiated settlement. Thank you.
Thank you for those questions. We probably have to wrap up the online event very soon. So I'll read the last comments from the chat and then just make some concluding remarks and then hand over to Bra Ali to answer anything and wrap up. So there's a comment from Vusi Kumalo. Thanks, Bra Ali, for this remarkable work. I understand the support of the family, but what were the challenges that you experienced while conducting research on this work? From Nkululeko again, it is nice to meet here and know that we have on our panel one of our illustrious leaders of the struggle, Dr. Joe Tlolwe. We don't share enough with him with the young generation. We don't share enough about him with the young generation. Izole to Brajo, long live. From Pinky Mothopeng in Botswana, thanks, Dr. Ali Hlongwane. I'm about halfway through the book, and it's great to read about Uncle Zeph's life and who he was as a man and family man. Thank you for making this available to the world, as it is difficult information to come by, but very important nonetheless. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for attending online. We thank our Zoom audience around the world for sticking with us. Firstly, I'd like to thank all the speakers, Dr. Jotlolwe, Professor Gilingwe Mayende, Dr. Matubu here, Strawelo. You will teach me after we log off. After we say. We would also, our Jacana Media is the distributor of this book. Of course, you can buy it here at Exclusive Books Kilarn. But if you are far away and need to purchase it, I'm going to type in the email address that you can contact, sales@jacana.co.za. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Bra Ali to close. For the online audience, I'm sure the people in the bookstore will interact for a bit. Thank you.
Thank you, Program Director. I would like to quickly mention 3 institutions that have made this project realizable. The History Workshop, who gave me an opportunity to be affiliated with them so that I can be a full-time researcher and writer without the worries of when is the next meal coming from. I also want to thank the National Institute for Humanities and Social Sciences, who funded the publication of the book. And I would like to thank my colleague here, Professor Swison, who is affiliated to UNISA. He also assisted with the resources for the editors so that they can be committed to the project, and also assisted with the compiling of the index. And on a light note, when I approached him to assist us with the resources to pay for somebody to do the index, he said to me, I don't want to start a 3rd World War. So I will not use the resources of the Thabo Mbeki Foundation. I will use the UNISA. So the PAC comrades who are here have no quarrel with the Chapman Foundation. On the questions, I think we will in future have ongoing dialogue. Just the minor challenge I had is that I was studying part-time whilst working for the city. Therefore, I never got an opportunity to travel to Basotho land, now called Lesotho. Again, I thank the history workshop that appointed a young student, Matsiliso, who is based in Lesotho, to go to the archives and dig copies of Hlongwane. And also what was important is that she was able to locate the minutes of the board in Lesotho that expelled Uncle Zef, Tate Mokgele, and Tate Khangela. And that gave us an opportunity not to make claims that we cannot support. We actually quote the minutes and they refer to him, and also his role in the newspaper Hlongwane, as a co-owner with, and they used that to expel him. The legal records mention you, and then someone even said he gave problems to his organization at home. At the time, it was the ANC Youth League. And now he is here in Basotho land to give us problems. Send him back to the Republic, So that's, the humorous part, but the struggles he went through. But he also, on his release, he didn't only go to London, he went to Tanzania, he went to Botswana, where he got some of the APLA cadres there who were in prison, like Letlapa, released. The other challenge was to get his records, police records, piles and piles of police records. They were only released as the book was being published. So that deprived us an opportunity to enrich further, but we were able to take some aspects of the documents and print them because those documents have very sensitive information about how they tortured him. One of them, without going to those sad emotions, is that his doctor asked him, "Why are your legs so long?" And he said, "It's because they made me stand for 7 days without sleep as part of torture." So that's what they explained. But also in the records, they were telling each other that, "Oh, we don't think he'll live more than 3 months. We must release him." And others were saying, "If he dies in prison, what will the international community react and what? All those records are now fortunately available for other researchers to really go deeper. And thanks, let me close it.
Thank you, online audience. We will now end the Zoom, and I hope we'll have another book launch soon.
For us, I was actually avoiding a launch because I don't like to be with crowds.